Do you like playing with balls? No, I'm not talking about footballs. I mean your balls. Our friends at Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, want you to shave your pubes with the Tom Brady of ball trimmers, the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Only the GOAT technology for the greatest balls of all time. When you're going towards the end zone, make sure you use the right tools for the job and choose Manscaped. 2 million men worldwide trust them, so join the movement with our exclusive offer by using code DTR at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping.
Stafford under pressure, gonna tuck it, and he's in! Darrell Henderson, he's off and running! As Woods, touchdown! Cooper Kupp just went up and took it away.
Van Jefferson for the touchdown.
Aaron Donald smothers him. Jalen Ramsey put the pop on him. Sacked by Leonard Floyd, having a day again.
Darius Williams with a diving hit. Jordan Fuller comes up with his second interception of the night.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And on today's episode, guys, we have a very special guest. But first, with the NFL season here, you need a sportsbook with integrity and longevity like BetUS. You may already know this, but BetUS have been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That is BETUS.com, and they have loads of bonuses. Join now or call 800-69-BET-US. That is 800-MY-BET-US. You receive a 125% sign-up bonus by using bonus code RAMS125. They have re-up and referral bonuses also. BetUS is known as America's favorite sportsbook for a lot of different reasons. BetUS has all your NFL games with team and player props and loads of futures. You can bet UFC matches, props, PGA golf, round matchups, and live betting on most sports as well. The online casino has hundreds of games, and the racebook has all your horse tracks. They have every bet type imaginable, and the sharp BetUS mobile platform is easy with full betting options. Follow my lead and get your phone, online, and social sports betting partner with integrity and longevity like I did. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS. All right, guys. So like I mentioned earlier, we have a very special guest with us today to preview this Los Angeles Rams matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. So please welcome with us Jourdan Rodrigue to the show. How are you doing today, Jourdan?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It's been kind of a fun start, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely has. We're happy to have you on. Obviously, big fan of your work and what you do. Have such a hard time reading all sorts of articles and everything. But I got to say, I don't miss an article that you write over at The Athletic. I make sure to read every single one of them. I feel like you've kind of made everyone else smarter. So you've really done a nice job and really do appreciate the work that you do. So it's great to have you on.
Well, that's a huge compliment. I appreciate it. I'll send you a check later. So no, I mean, I really appreciate it. It's just fun. I think that this team is, I always tell people, they ask me like, well, what's it like covering the Rams? And, they just do a lot of different things. They ask a lot of questions of themselves and of each other and kind of push each other in a lot of different ways. And I just think that's really, really fun to cover from a storytelling perspective. So I'm very glad you guys enjoy it and I appreciate it.
For sure. Yes. Like I forgot to mention in your intro that you do write for The Athletic. You cover the Rams. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people that I've talked to, you are like the person for Rams news.
Aww.
And I don't say that lightly. I mean, you are a very, very good source. You're a very good Twitter follow, very good journalist and writer, reporter. You do it all. We're really big fans, which is why we're excited for you to kind of preview this game with us. Week 4. We play the Arizona Cardinals, and they are the only other team in our division that are 3-0 right now, which is kind of interesting because the NFC West is, I think in my opinion, and I think in Jake's as well, one of the most competitive divisions in football. You see Seattle's kind of falling behind, 49ers doing good as well, but we're really excited to take on the Cardinals, especially because the Cardinals, I feel like, have had a lot of offseason hype. They acquired a lot of really good players, and they're kind of one of the teams that a lot of people have been talking about. So I'm just going to ask like a very broad question just to start this off. But when we go against the Cardinals, what do you think is the main thing that the Rams need to watch out for?
Well, I think it's got to be Kyler. I mean, I like what their pass rush is doing too. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a really cool thing to sort of, it's a very Rams thing also to like unite veteran players, right? For a sort of a last stand there on a roster, and rejuvenate them a little bit. But it's got to be Kyler, because we just have not seen so far what this Rams defense will look like against a quarterback who has the ability on the ground that he does. And it's not usually like his first option or even his first preference to sort of run and extend plays in that way. But when he does, excuse me, guys, sorry about that. When he does, he really is so tough to, first of all, see. And he's really hard to contain on the edges. And normally that's like Leonard Floyd's music, right? Like Leonard Floyd loves going after mobile quarterbacks. He loves going after Kyler. We talked to him about it after he signed his contract extension. And he like compared it to when a fox chases a rabbit, and he said that he was the fox, which was like slightly terrifying if I'm a quarterback to hear a defensive end say that or an outside linebacker say that. But he's also kind of managing an ankle injury. So, and then the Rams are also, how are they going to contain having Jalen Ramsey close to the line of scrimmage, and that star position will be really helpful, I think, in this regard. But still, you don't know. And Kyler can really extend plays, and we know he's got downfield receiving threats for when he does. So it's going to be a tough cover on the back end. It's going to be really tough for the guys on the front end, just tracking him and containing him in every way. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest factors of this game.
Yeah, looking at this game, obviously, Kyler Murray is definitely like a headline there. I mean, he's somebody, I do think the Rams kind of got a little bit of a cheat code, because they had been going up against Russell Wilson all those years, knowing what Kyler Murray was going to bring in the NFL. Whereas other teams only play the Seahawks once a year or maybe once every 4 years, weren't as ready as, say, the Rams. I do feel like that has helped, them against Kyler Murray. Of course, Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals have not beaten Sean McVay and the Rams, but I do feel like this is a little different. I will say this. They were dealt a weird blow, not one that I expected, but Malcolm Butler being on the retired list really kind of put them in a tough spot on the defensive back end. You're looking at Marco Wilson, somebody they drafted in the 4th round that, look, he tested extremely well, but I felt like was definitely not expected to go that high. And he has been throttled into a position, right off the bat, really, played 95% of snaps week 1, had a weird week 2. And then week 3 plays 100% of snaps. So you're going to see him. You're going to see Byron Murphy, a guy that was my number 1 corner coming out. Somebody that's very, very, impressive. Had a pick 6 last week. Pretty much a gimme, but, it was definitely a pick 6. Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker. How do you look at this secondary and what the Rams have been able to do so far through the air? Do you feel this is, kind of along the same lines as, what we've seen with the Chicago Bears, the Colts, and the Bucks is, this is a secondary that can be thrown on? Or do you think that they could give the Rams some issues?
You mean the Cardinals secondary, or are you talking about the Rams secondary?
Yeah, the Cardinals secondary.
Yeah, I just think that the Rams, I'm not sure I've seen proof just yet of a secondary that does present a problem to what these receivers can do. I think we have not, I'm just going to gauge off of like what I saw in camp. Like, I don't think we've seen even, 10% of some of the concepts that they have for these receivers, especially with Matthew Stafford and how just the various things he does pre and post snap kind of opens the depth of the playbook up a lot more. So I think you're going to see a lot of ball distribution where they may try to focus a little bit more on, say, Cooper Kupp. Then you have problems because you've still got Robert Woods, you've still got Van Jefferson. And the thing about these receivers right now, and obviously Deshaun Jackson made his debut in a big way on Sunday. The thing about these receivers, though, is that they're running the full tree, all 3 of the, kind of the WR1, 2, and 3, and Cooper, Robert, and Van, they're running the full tree. So you can see where some things that maybe the Cardinals push to defend will be really, really a tough sort of gamble to take for the Cardinals defensive backs and linebackers, because if they try to cover some of these deep concepts that even Van is running on, even Cooper is running on, the underneath, Robert Woods has really presented as an underneath option and been extremely open on several occasions. And especially if teams are trying to contain that over the top threat, which now that Deshaun Jackson has put that on tape, that obviously pulls players away from what they like to do in the middle of the field and on the underneath concepts. So the fact that you're seeing such complementary design in some of these routes in terms of the concepts, like there's going to be high-low concepts, there's going to be middle concepts, and they're selling them extremely well all around. So it's kind of like you're really, what do you deal with? Do you make sure do you try to contain the explosive? Well, okay, if you do that, then you're going to have to deal with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp doing some of those catch and runs and Cooper Kupp getting open at a sort of a higher rate than he ever has. And, if you contain those, then, the top end's going to be open and Deshaun Jackson can kill you there. Van Jefferson can kill you there. So I just haven't seen a defensive backs group yet. Obviously it's very early in the year that has maybe a plan for all of these guys at one time. And I think you're going to start to see that unfold more and more in NFC West play, obviously where it really, really counts. Because I still felt like they were holding a lot back against the Bears and against the Colts even as well. Maybe showed a little bit more against Tampa Bay on Sunday, but I felt like they were holding things back. I have a good Cooper Kupp story about Jalen Thompson and Cooper Kupp, I guess. So a scout told me this. So they started scouting Cooper when he was an underclassman, which was so rare because you don't get FCS prospects on your chart. If you're a scout, an area scout, you don't really get underclassmen in the FCS. But Cooper was just out there just destroying people, even in like 2015. And I guess the scout was down now, has moved regions. He was down at Purdue the other week. And he mentioned that one of the guys who coaches at Purdue now, he was at, I believe, was it Washington State, when Eastern Washington and Washington State played each other. And he said that, so Cooper went off in that game and he threw a stiff arm on Jalen Thompson. And the coach said, like, we were genuinely concerned that Cooper Kupp broke his face. And I was like, can I put that in my story? Like, that's really good. That's really good. Right. And so I just think, like, there's going to be a lot of focus on Cooper if we're talking specifically about the Cardinals defensive backfield and a plan on trying to contain him. But I think that's, first of all, I have not seen a successful plan for that so far this year. And second of all, I think you got a lot of other guys to worry about at that point if you do focus too much on one player.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there's going to be a lot of focus on Cooper Kupp. And I think Jalen Thompson, I'm sure, has not forgotten that moment. And I'm sure that he is going to have that in his head all week, and especially during the game, and is definitely going to keep an eye on Cooper for sure. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There hasn't really been a secondary that I've felt has done a really great job of containing the Rams receivers so far. And when I look at this Arizona secondary, I mean, other than Budda Baker and Byron Murphy, I'm not totally super high on any of the rest of the guys they got back there. So I do think it is going to be a bit of a challenge for them to contain guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Van Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson and Tyler Higbee and all the really great players that we have on offense, which it kind of leads me into a transition a little bit. We talk about Arizona's secondary. I kind of want to talk about our secondary for a second with Arizona's offense, because Arizona also has a good offense. In my opinion, they are very talented. I think they have a lot of key players. I think that obviously starts with Kyler Murray, who we talked about, and his ability to move around and throw the ball and kind of be a trickster and give defenses trouble. But not only, is he able to make things happen on his own, he has guys like AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins, and, Christian Kirk is really good. Rookie Rondale Moore is pretty good. They do have weapons on their offense, but we also have weapons in our secondary, such as Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams and, obviously Jordan Fuller, Taylor Rapp, guys like that. So I'm just curious, Jourdan, when you look at this matchup with these kind of, stars on Arizona's offense going against the stars on our Rams secondary. What do you expect that looking like on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great test of this secondary. I think they've let up a couple of explosive plays that are not characteristic of the way that this scheme is built. This defensive scheme, and I know that I am a broken record at this point since last year. Just talking about how they sort of build a roof over the back of the defense, and they're built past, coverage dictates front, so they're designed to stop the explosive passing plays by nature of how they build sort of that dome on the back end and play a lot of too high shells that rotate and all of these things. And I think it's a really good matchup for specifically the receivers on this Cardinals roster to be scheme sound in that regard. They were very scheme sound against Tampa Bay. A couple of breaks at one point. There was a pass to Rob Gronkowski that should have been, I'm not 100% positive because I don't know the call, but I think it should have been David Long sliding over the top of the roof essentially to contain that. But they can cover. All of these guys can cover downfield. The point of having sort of that dome, that shell, is that people don't get behind you, and you play from depth, which helps contain everything in front of you in the passing game, and it helps force quarterbacks to take checkdowns. It helps force quarterbacks to take the things that they don't necessarily want to do. They want to attack. They want to accumulate those backbreaker explosive plays, and the problem that now becomes with the Cardinals is that Kyler can move into those quote unquote check down spaces. He can move there with his legs. He can grab those gimme yards, those sort of soft yards in front, because the Rams secondary and overall is going to be playing from depth and has been playing from depth. So moving Jalen into the star becomes really, really helpful in this regard, because he's going to be one of the guys who's not playing from depth unless they pop him out to cover DeAndre Hopkins or someone else, which I would expect they would do quite a bit, because that dude can kill you if he gets going and gets into a rhythm. So being careful with the spots that they pick for Jalen in that regard, like you can have him contain and make sure that Kyler can't pick up those yards, because you're going to have to. If Kyler can extend and pick up those soft yards in front of the line of scrimmage, and the outside linebackers aren't getting to him, and the linebackers aren't getting to him, then the defensive backs are going to have to cover for a really, really long time, and they can't come down, because if you come down, then you leave the back of the defense susceptible to one of those big plays and getting behind you. So the receivers are present enough of a threat to where you do have to make sure you're covering for a long, long time. And, but then it all comes back to Kyler again, because he can pick up, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time just with his legs. If those options aren't available downfield because the defense is playing contain and scheme sound, you kind of sacrifice that part of it. So that's where it really becomes important. Again, with wherever Jalen's going to be along the line of scrimmage versus the reps he gets on the outside against DeAndre. And then also what you're doing with your linebackers. It becomes more important than ever for a guy like Kenny Young to be able to move laterally. Becomes more important than ever for a guy like Leonard Floyd to be healthy and able to contain in that regard. So that's kind of where it gets complicated, not just with the defensive backs, who I believe can cover, and will be able to cover and execute the way that they do. It's just when that piece becomes unavailable to Kyler, what he can do on the front end to sort of try to make it available and bait the defense into overcommitting lower downfield, which then that's when you fire the ball downfield and you see kind of Aaron Rodgers do stuff like that and all that. So it's going to be complicated, and it's going to need to be. I thought that Raheem Morris designed a really smart game plan for the Bucs, and they tested Tom Brady's patience. They did a lot of things that he does not like, including getting a lot of interior pressure. And they really tested his patience in that regard and forced him to take some of the things he doesn't want to take. And so I think that you're going to have to maybe even more on your P's and Q's design wise against this, not just from a secondary perspective, but then the ripple effect that happens when you do ask your guys to cover for a really long time.
No, it's all just fantastic points. And, I think just starting off with the, your comment on Raheem Morris, I think some people forgot down the stretch he played this exact offense. I mean, albeit Antonio Brown was out, but he played this exact offense twice the last 4 games of the season. One of those games, it was 31-26. So, he had something going there with the Falcons. They were in that game. But I really liked his game plan. What I'm really interested with is how the Rams, there's certain guys that will have, a big role. I mean, I was surprised. Robert Rochelle, the rookie who is considered, in my opinion, a little bit raw. Love him. And, I think he's exactly what you want long term. But I was surprised to see him get 27 snaps week 1. Week 2, he gets 14. This week, he doesn't get any. Whereas on the other side of the thing, you'll have, a guy like, say, Nick Scott, who, week 1, he gets about 10 snaps. This week, he gets 31. But I got to ask you, and I know, you've already kind of, in a sense, answered this through, your writing and everything. But for, my listeners that may have not gotten a chance to read that, what are your thoughts on, say, Terrell Burgess moving forward? And, do you see his role, potentially emerging down the stretch? Or do you think it's going to be, they're going to do what's working right now? And, obviously it's a next man up type of league. So if anyone goes down, then he would obviously be the next man up.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting because Terrell Burgess, I've been expecting a really big season from him. And so for him to not be coming in on the sub packages, which is that's what Nick Scott came in on. They were playing out of base the entire game. I mean, you're pretty much never going to see these guys at base anymore at this point. But for Nick Scott, that told me, you've got Rob Gronkowski on the field, right? Like that tells me you need Nick Scott, who's a really big safety, who is a sure tackler, who's got the experience and really came along last year in terms of that really physical tackling ability. And I think they're seeing that in Taylor Rapp as well. They're using Taylor Rapp in a lot of different ways, including on some blitz packages. Raheem Morris blitz is about a 10% rate so far, higher than Brandon Staley did, which doesn't seem like a huge difference, but it's a massive difference in terms of the way that the numbers ultimately shake out across the league. And so I think you're seeing him utilize there. Some of the matchup stuff, when you have a lot of different receivers who can do a lot of different things, and you also have a really big pass-catching tight end, Taylor Rapp and Nick Scott, I think, are maybe your decisions in that regard, not just because of the experience relative to Terrell Burgess missing so much time last year, but then also he's like I don't know. They didn't tackle through camp, so I don't know how he is as a tackler yet. I'm sure he's great. He was great at Utah, but he's also a really finesse player, like in terms of coverage specifically, and he is a finesse player in terms of versatility. So I think, and what I've been seeing at practice, which I actually am not actually technically not allowed to report on based on the terms of the credential, just different position groups that he's working with and different things that he's been able to do. I think you're going to see sub packages involve him down the stretch. And I think he's kind of a luxury player for them at the moment in terms of some of the basic things that they needed to take care of in terms of their defensive backs plan. Now, I also think that I don't want to take away from Taylor Rapp either, because first of all, you're not Taylor Rapp. And I see a lot of people on Twitter, and they kind of get mad at Taylor Rapp because sometimes he's the closest player to some sort of player downfield.
Exactly. I've been saying
like, oh no. But it's actually, you're not supposed to see Taylor Rapp in coverage like that. Like if you see him in coverage like that, something else went wrong. Taylor Rapp, they're bringing him from depth downhill, and he is an angry tackler. He is assertive and sure as a tackler, and that's where his gifts are. And so that's where they're trying to make it so that he continues to play from the top down. And he's also in the box at times, as you see. And so usually when they're playing their coverages, people are supposed to carry to a certain point, and then someone else takes over. A couple of times that just hasn't happened. So then the player who thought he was going to get carried ends up having to follow the entire way, and you can't have that happen. So I think with Terrell, I think it's kind of a balance that they're working out right now, because he can do a lot of things for them. Like, heck, this guy could play corner for them in a pinch, if he had to. So I think it's just figuring out where he fits in. I think his sort of the sub packages in which you'll see him come in. I think that'll expand as the year continues and people try to figure out different ways to counter this defense. I will also note that something that I completely, because I am a big dummy sometimes, something I didn't even think about was how much teams will try to go tempo, particularly when Aaron Donald's not on the field, which is rare, but does happen sometimes. And they'll try to go tempo when he's not on the field, or they'll try to go tempo at various times. Or the defense is also trying to assert and not show its hand so much and kind of make things really muddy for the quarterback. Well, if you have a safety coming on and off the field, like, for example, I thought for sure, and this is still the case, this still could be the case and may well be down the stretch. If you have Terrell Burgess coming in every time Jalen Ramsey pops back out to the outside, that's a pretty big tell about what defensive sub package you're going to go into and where the matchup's going to be. And then the offense can change and check into a different call. So you can't be subbing in and out all the time with how much these corners are rotating. Darius Williams is playing in the star a lot, and that allows Jalen the freedom to pop outside. Well, you can't put Taylor Rapp in the star, and you're not going to put Jordan Fuller anywhere but doing the excellent things that Jordan Fuller does at safety. So if you want to keep playing fast and keep asserting and also dictating to where the offense can't counter a look because they don't quite know what the look you're showing is, you can't be subbing a guy in and out. And I'm a big dummy because I didn't even think about that during camp because they're just subbing out all the time at camp because it doesn't matter. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is definitely going to happen. And then all of a sudden, first 3 weeks go by and I'm like, yeah, that would actually be a pretty big tell for the offense if they were throwing Terrell Burgess in and out. It would basically send a flare up as to wherever Jalen was going to be. And you don't want teams to know where Jalen's going to be. So, I think they're working that out still. But I have no reason to believe he won't see the field a lot down the stretch. He's a really talented player.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's really good insight there because that's stuff that I haven't even thought about as well. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because I would definitely love to see Burgess get on the field. A really big fan of his, and I know that he will eventually, but you made some really good points there. But speaking kind of about the defense, I kind of want to talk about Justin Hollins because you shared earlier today that he has been moved to injured reserve and he is having pectoral surgery this week. But it sounds like, according to Coach McVay, that he is designated to return. So the partial tear is not season ending for him. So if you could please share a little, insight on that, kind of on what that means, as well as your thoughts on who's going to be the next man up to replace him while he's gone.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm so bummed for him. I feel like you guys are too. Like it just he really has been like such a. Because watching him work behind the scenes, I was telling Rich Hammond this on our latest episode of 11 Personnel. I was like, Justin Hollins has gotten to the point in his development where he's on the Leonard Floyd pre-practice workout plan. Like Leonard Floyd is known for, he does this same exact thing every single time he takes the practice field, and he has a separate warm-up plan to everybody else. And it's like, really, really technical and really detailed. And then he goes and stretches start. And then he joins teammates for stretches and all that stuff. And then the practice starts. Well, Justin Hollins now has one too. Well, had one too. And I was like, oh man, that's status right there. Like he's really developed and really has earned that sort of, ability to add some technical components and then those early parts of practice. And it just stinks for him, man. Like he was really playing so well and he was doing so many things for the Rams that they really needed from a player on the opposite side of Leonard Floyd. They did not have a consistent presence opposite Leonard last year. And Justin Hollins was just playing his butt off. And teammates really took notice and they really liked it. It wasn't just, in pass rush situations. They could keep him on the field on rundowns and things like that. And that was really telling as to his skill and his development. Shout out to Brandon Staley for pushing the team to bring him in off the waiver last year. And so Justin, partial tear of the pectoral. I think that's like the silver lining is it wasn't a full tear. So he's having surgery this week. And I would say we're looking at December for him to return because it's going to be about 8 to 10 weeks in my sense. And you probably are going to try to get him back for late December and then a playoff push, which, that sounds very well and good until you remember you got like 15 games in between then and now, and 12 games in between then and now. And so then you got to figure out what your rotation is going to be. And it's very much going to have to be a rotation. Obo Okoronkwo is coming back. He's able to be activated off of short-term IR. Had a little bit of a shoulder injury, but he's been getting a full workout in on the side with trainers for the last 2 weeks. So really it felt like kind of a formality, the IR, just in case he had a setback. He clearly did not have a setback. He's moving really well. And I think having him back, particularly for a game like this, because he has the speed, helps against a player like Kyler Murray. But then you're also trying to figure out a rotation because Terrell Lewis is incredibly impressive and incredibly productive in limited snaps, but his number is going to be between 20 and 30 snaps a game. That's just a fact. Like they're going to have to manage his knee, and they will be managing his knee probably for the rest of his career. And, it's possible. They're showing that it's possible 3 games in. I mean, he's playing really well, and he's not playing a full snap share, but in the snaps that he is playing, he is having an impact. He's having an effect on the offense, and he's making big plays. And so you're probably going to need to figure out a rotation between him and Obo Okoronkwo, but you probably also are going to, because sometimes you can't have Obo in there in terms of some of the more heavier personnel packages, things like that, because he is a little bit smaller sized. So that's when you kind of question, like, is Chris Garrett going to develop as much as they might need him to this year and quickly? And Justin Lawler, who really showed promise in the preseason, he's got a broken hand, so he's kind of playing with a half club right now. And so are they going to elevate him? And so it's going to be a really mathematical situation, similar actually to the way that they're sort of trying to manage their running backs. And it's complicated and it's fickle. And so it's going to be situational and matchup based, but it's definitely going to be a rotation.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up on their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS, that is BETUS.com, or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS, BetUS, for 125% bonuses with promo code RAMS125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry, BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Ready for an out-of-world experience, fellas? Look no further than the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. That has just taken off in not only the USA, but Canada, the UK, across Europe, Australia, South Africa, and Singapore. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your whole solar system in. First scheduled for liftoff, new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. This spaceship is here to guide you on a journey to trim your body, balls, butt, and even your anus. This 4th generation trimmer also features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. Thanks to our advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor and a new multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock and is even waterproof. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 4000K LED spotlight you can turn on and off when needed for a more precise shave throughout your travels across the universe. The Performance 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker. It's like having a little astronaut to chop your worst weeds up the top of your nose and your ears. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Don't forget about the Crop Preserver, ball deodorant, and the Crop Reviver to help your little planets be on their A game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Abort hairy balls, Buzz Lightyear that Woody with Manscaped. That was my thought as well. And I'm asked this a lot. Like yesterday I'm on, YouTube doing a live stream and everyone's like, are we going to go out and get Jamie Collins? I'm like, well, you have to understand Jamie Collins does not play the same role as Justin Hollins. He was just released, and that was before he was released. But, I look at this team and I think they have what it takes. They have the, like you said, you're getting about 30 snaps from Terrell Lewis. What are you going to do with the other, say, 30, 40, depending on the type of game? I would imagine, how high octane the Cardinals offense is. You're probably going to get around similar to Tampa. They had around 70 snaps. I'd say 65 to 70. So you have to figure out a way to, say Terrell Lewis, he plays 34 last week. You have to figure out a way to fill in the rest of that. Justin Lawler, you did mention, is playing with half club, so he didn't get in at all last week. He was not elevated. I'd imagine you'll probably see Lewis. You'll see Obo. Chris Garrett's interesting. He got in 4 snaps last week. Of course, it kind of became, no one wants to call it garbage time because Tom Brady was the quarterback, but that was pretty much garbage time.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's really
That's
just
fair.
the fact. But, the interesting thing when I was going back and I was, reviewing the All-22 film, Michael Hoyt has been used a little bit as kind of like the, that edge, like when Morgan Fox initially was a stand-up to, a guy that could put his, hand in the dirt and rush. He could rush interior. You can go on the outside, be an edge defender. Like, I kind of feel they have that similar vibe with Hoyt. Could you see him joining this rotation? Because I know they used him a little bit against Chicago in that realm.
Yeah, I could see him kind of coming off the edge a little bit more, especially in the meantime when they're trying to figure out this rotation between Obo and Lewis. I don't know that they'll use him a ton in like maybe pure pass rush situationals. I think you still want to have a speed rush coming from Obo or Terrell Lewis in those situations. But I think especially if a team's going to run the ball a lot on you, you're going to look at a guy like Hoyt. He's really developed really well. He's one of those guys who works out with Ed McGilvra in the spring. Sebastian Joseph Day and Morgan Fox all did that. And so, anybody who goes to Ed McGilvra, you add pass rush moves to your arsenal usually every year. And he certainly has done that. So I think that's something that he's preparing for, could be ready for. Again, I think it comes against heavier personnel sets, most likely. Like, I don't know that you want him there every down. Certainly, though, to get a little bit of a change up against an offensive line, you have that as an option. And they're back to lining Aaron Donald up wide as well. So on a couple of snaps, I don't know who thought it was a good idea to have Rob Gronkowski try to chip Aaron Donald, but
that was hilarious.
Yeah, bless his heart, as they say. But yeah, it was. It's frightening. So I think you're just going to try. You're going to see them try a lot of different things to try to figure out sort of what those magic numbers are for everybody. Because you're not only dealing now with ability, you're also dealing with 2 guys in Obo and in Terrell who have dealt with recurring injuries. So you're going to have to figure out the management there as well.
Yeah, and just kind of sticking on this injury front, because earlier today I was scrolling through Twitter and I didn't have time to read this article, but I did see somewhere that McVay mentioned that he's hopeful that Darrell Henderson will be back for Sunday. I don't know if that's correct or not. It was just something I saw. So I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on that, because I know a lot of people obviously are very interested in Henderson, as he's, most likely for a lot of people, he's our running back number 1, although I think Sony Michel is doing very well. So a lot of people are just wondering when he's going to be back, and if there's maybe kind of like a loose time frame around that injury.
Yeah, I think realistically, I'm still not convinced that this would be the week for him, just because a rib injury, like the rib cartilage, I think one thing that factors in, they say that it's like a pain thing. For me, it comes kind of down to maybe less of the carries and taking those types of hits that usually come around sort of your shoulders and your waist and the base. But setting a base in pass pro, all of the force of a like 300-pound guy coming right directly into your chest. Like, to me, that's where the concern maybe might lie. Like, I personally would be concerned about that. Like, even if I wasn't injured, I would be concerned about that. So I think that's kind of where you can't gauge what that's going to feel like in practice, because they can't do contact in practice. So even if he's not experiencing a lot of pain this entering the week, which is great if not, but you just don't know how it's going to be in a game. So I think being able to lean on Sony Michel is a really, really good option for the Rams to have. He was just like wrecking people in pass pro as well on Sunday. So I think he's really showed how far he's come along in just a really short time. Like, Matthew Stafford still refers to him as like a new player, right? A new addition, because he joined so late in the preseason and just really had to pick up a very complicated sort of rushing scheme and an offense that's hard to learn, especially from a player who's been on the outside. So one thing that I think they really like about Sony, and Darryl certainly, this doesn't discount Darryl, who's, I think, so extraordinarily talented as a running back. But one thing they have appreciated about Sony is that steadiness that he brings. You don't even blink that he carried the ball 20 times. Like, whereas, you're still managing Darryl even when he's healthy. You're trying to find out, okay, it's probably going to be 16 average, maybe 16 carries per game, 15 carries per game. And you don't know if you can go a lot more over that. So it would have still been, in my opinion, a compliment, moving down the stretch, even with him being healthy. But with Sony being healthy, and I know he's had injury issues too, but right now he's the healthy back. And he comes in a late game situation, super adverse situation. Darryl gets hurt in Indianapolis, and the Rams are like on very thin ice in Indianapolis, and you got to run the ball. And Sony comes in to the huddle and he just smiles at everybody like in a very reassuring way. And he's like, all right, let's get this done. And that just goes such a long way, having that presence with teammates. And then the steadiness that he demonstrated down the stretch when the Rams closed things out against the Bucs, and really sort of imposed their will in that way that running late with a lead can do. And I think especially against a pretty challenging Bucs front, for him to sort of bite off some of those downs that he did, and you don't even blink when you realize, you're like, oh shoot, he carried the ball 20 times. I didn't even realize that. Whereas with Darryl, at times you're sort of counting. You're like, all right, we're at number 14 now. Okay, you're at number 15. Like, we got to start thinking about spelling you. And that's just because they're trying to maximize Darryl's availability, because he's so explosive and so talented. Such a great player for them, as long as they can keep him healthy. So it's going to be interesting when Darryl does come back to see what sort of balance that is, and sort of how they work that out, because they need to stay in sync and they need to stay steady in the run game. But they also have a quarterback now who you don't need to predicate any play action with the run anymore. You don't need to sell the run as much as you had in the past, and you can pass the ball a crap load. So I think like it's going to be really interesting to see the balance that they strike down the stretch with those two.
No, I absolutely agree. It's really unfortunate for Darrell Henderson, who I think, in some cases, I mean, you're on Twitter, I do think he gets overlooked. I think he gets underrated. He's kind of pigeonholed because, the optics, you go out, you trade for him in the third, barely use him that year in 2019, just a really kind of weird year. And then 2020, you see the Rams go up and get, Cam Akers at 52 overall. It kind of sends a message to the fan base like, all right, this isn't our guy. Cam Akers is our guy. So I felt like people had to kind of get over that when Cam Akers went down and realized that they're both really good players. And Darrell Henderson, through 8 games last year, PFF had him as the number 1 running back. Now, I'm not one of those people that would say PFF is like the Bible, but that is something that you can use as a tool. And, looking at the film, I think, like you said in pass pro with Sony Michel, that's a big reason why they got him. You want those guys that can stay on the field, because Darrell Henderson, everyone looks at how small he is in stature, but they don't, really give him credit, like yourself and, Alexis and I and, some other people. He is very good in pass protection, and he does not care who's coming at his quarterback, he's going to step in and make a nice, blitz pickup. Or, I mean, it's impressive what he does.
Yeah. And I think, sorry to interrupt you, but it's such a great point that you make, and it shouldn't go unsaid, is like, when people, I mean, it's hard sometimes, like when you hear about how explosive and elusive a back is, which Daryl is. And then you see him in person and you're like, the dude is like running into a cannonball. Like, he is so stout. So you think you're like, oh, it's going to be undersized, thinking about, seeing some of the ways that they would run him in the wider or the outside zone concepts, things like that. And then you see him and he is like smaller height wise, but I'm serious, like running into him must feel like hitting a freaking cannonball, because it really, I mean, he will not move. And so that's so valuable, to your point. And it's kind of like almost like a Terrell Lewis situation, except not the same injury that keeps popping up. Instead, it's been a lot of just different things. And I've hated it for him because he has so much ability, but they're going to have to just continue to figure out what that number is for him.
It's true. It really is. And I think, really, this is where the NFL was gravitating towards anyway. With the running back by committee approach, even the Giants are doing it a little bit with Saquon coming back from his injury. Ezekiel Elliott, obviously somebody that's had a lot of success. You see that with Tony Pollard, also a Memphis running back. By the way, Jourdan, I'm pretty sure you know by now, but Anthony Jones Jr., he came on our show, the Memphis running back coach. It's a factory over there. Like, if you want a running back that can help in pass pro and that has that explosiveness and has good contact balance like Darrell Henderson, like they're gonna have him until the end of time. It didn't even sound like he wanted to leave there. We had him on because Thomas Brown, who funny enough has that connection with Sony Michel, and the year Sony Michel was the year Sony Michel had the most usage in the passing game, ironically, was when Thomas Brown was the running back coach. But I just find it funny because it just reminded me, we had Anthony Jones Jr. on the show because we wanted to ask him about, that potential of him, potentially becoming the Rams running back coach when that spot opened. And he agreed to come on, and basically, it sounds like he's going to be there for a while. So, not to go off the rails there, but
it's cool.
I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But yeah.
he's I think very underrated as a coach. And another cool thing is that one of the scouting apprentices in the Rams apprenticeship program that they created last year for scouts, men and women across the country, to get kind of an opportunity in an NFL apprenticeship. His name's Sherman Wilson, and he is the recruiting coordinator at Memphis. So that is a pipeline for the Rams that is not going away anytime soon. That place is underrated in terms of some of their talent development down there. And Anthony is an underrated coach as well, in my opinion.
Totally agree there. They definitely are kind of like a little running back very underrated, I should say. Over there, but it's kind of this time in the podcast where we get into predictions slightly, a little bit. Jake and I usually try to maybe like low key one up each other and see who can get a better prediction or closer prediction. We're pretty even so far on the season. I think we've actually done a pretty good job on like score predictions slightly.
I mean, to be fair, it's pretty easy. You put a score somewhere in the 30s for the Rams and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's true. But before score predictions, we kind of just say maybe like a stat prediction for a player or something. So for example, when I'm looking at this game and I look at who's on the Arizona Cardinals and who's on the Rams, obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of this Arizona Cardinals offensive line. I think they really luck out because Kyler Murray is so mobile and can kind of make anything happen and just kind of runs around and gets it done. But just looking at the players that they have, I'm not super high on them. And Jake kind of mentioned this earlier. They almost sometimes run like they split carries with their offensive linemen. Like
the rotation. Cause like last week they had Max Garcia, Sean Harlow, Justin Pugh, and Justin Murray all kind of splitting snaps. Whereas, they have their big three, DJ Humphries, Josh Jones, and Rodney Hudson playing 100% of snaps. So it is interesting, but also just like really quick, Alexis, I do have to give offensive linemen credit to an extent. It is as easy as it is to help in a sense, with that running quarterback. It also really hurts your offensive line. You saw that in the Justin Fields game where, if he ran out or even, last night with Jalen Hurts and they pointed out in the Manning cast, if Jalen Hurts runs out of the pocket too quickly, you have all these guys changing direction. It's like the offensive line. It makes it easier to not only hold, but it makes it easier for the referees to identify a hold because the guy is moving that quickly and everybody's going in that direction, abruptly, and the offensive line has to kind of change their tone. So I just had to throw it out there because you're absolutely right. It does make it easier on the offensive line, but also there are times where it does make it hard.
Well, right. And I will say that this offensive line is much better than the Bears. I'm not saying they're like that by any means. But I do think, especially with the talent that we have on our defensive front, they're going to be in for a long day, which is why even though Kyler Murray is very mobile, I still think he's going to get sacked quite a bit. I do think that this offensive line is going to fold against our defensive line. I just don't think they're that solid. I think unless Kyler Murray gets the ball out very, very quickly, I don't think that this is going to be a fun day for them. So I think the Rams are going to get at least 5 sacks against the Cardinals. I don't know if that's bold or not. I don't know if people are like rolling their eyes or like, wow, bold prediction, Alexis. But I do think that we are going to have a good day on the sack front. So that's kind of my prediction. I don't know, we'll let Jourdan go first and then Jake, you can give yours.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a game where we might even see Jalen get a sack this game. I think he was very close on a couple of those pressures. And Alexis, I do think I'm certainly not rolling my eyes. I think it's a great point because the Rams front has been winning the line of scrimmage against this pretty stout Tampa Bay offensive line, and got the kind of pressure they wanted. They sort of did it at will. 18 pressures on Tom Brady, and it irritated him. You could tell he threw the ball out the back of the end zone. That's all you need to know. He was irritated. And I think that when they're getting that type of pressure, sort of the types that they want, like they're picking the types that they want. They're not being dictated to in that regard. I think that bodes well for maybe being able to design a couple of different things against Kyler, knowing that he can pop out. And then also, if you do have a mobile quarterback and he is popping out at times, like maybe, that could lead to higher numbers in terms of sack numbers, because if you can contain him and catch him, that's a positive stat in your own book. So I think that's going to be interesting to watch. Let me think. Okay. I think I have no reason to predict this, but I'm going to anyway, just because I like the guy. I think it's going to be a good game for Van Jefferson. I think he's going to score another touchdown, and I think he's going to have at least 65 yards receiving. And I think that you see a little bit of the ways where they're setting him up in places, and he's developing that rapport with Matthew Stafford a lot. I think I could pick Cooper Kupp any day of the week. I could pick Robert Woods any day of the week. And I think, I certainly not going to take away from either of those two guys, but kind of wanted to throw a curveball in there and predict a good game for Van Jefferson, at least 65 yards and a touchdown.
So you actually stole mine.
Aha! This is what happens. You guys let me go first.
I know. No, that's awesome. I was going to say Van Jefferson because his dad, he's going to show up in front of his dad, who is the wide receiver coach on the other sideline. And on top of that, he was going to burn his former teammate, Marco Wilson. But since we're not doing that, or I'm not doing that,
well, you added more depth to it, so I didn't even think about that. So you added more depth to it. I said I have no reason to pick this guy, and you were like, "Well, I have 3 reasons to pick this guy, actually." So,
I mean, I try, but no. I look at this game, and I'm thinking once again, it's funny how you would assume at some point a team is going to be able to take Kupp out of the equation. But when you look at who the Rams are playing with their secondaries upcoming, I mean, I was just talking to somebody on Sirius last night about that. They're like, are they going to take him out of the equation? And I'm like, I mean, Stafford can throw to anybody. I mean, you go back, you watch the tape. Stafford was throwing deep down the field to Miles Bryant, who was like the 4th string tight end for the Lions last year against the Titans in a pivotal game, big seam buster, like 50 yards down the field. So like he doesn't care. If you're out there, he will throw to you. But if Kupp's just like getting open consistently, like I think he can do against this secondary as well. I'm going to say Stafford throws over 400 yards. He would have done it last week. This past week, I think the Rams really, he could have thrown 6 touchdowns in that game, if I'm being honest. He got off to a kind of a Goffian start, so to speak. But then, really picked it up and was phenomenal the rest of the way. I think he throws 4 touchdowns, and I'm going to say he has 3 total touchdowns. I had the Rams winning comfortably in this one, but we haven't gotten the score prediction yet.
Right, but that's what we'll get into now. But I like all of our predictions. I think that we could be onto something this week, guys. I think that these are all very solid predictions here. I like them all, and especially the Matthew Stafford one, because I'm tired of people downplaying him. I just think he's great. And
give me a Kenny Young pick 6. I'm just feeling it.
He is lights out. My goodness.
You were right. I knew you were right. I knew you weren't just like talking about Kenny Young and Troy Reeder without actually seeing them in person. And like you were saying it all along when there were people that were literally taking Kenny Young off their 53-man roster early on.
People took Kenny Young and Terrell Lewis. They cut him. I was like, wait, guys.
I wasn't doing that, but
I know you weren't doing those things. But
I said Micah Kaiser, though. I was telling people, I'm like, I think Kenny Young, because you look at it in 2019, he shows up like halfway through the season. Give the guy a break. He needs to get involved, and I think, like you said, he had an opportunity. Last year was a fake off season, if you really look at it. Just with COVID and everything. So he really got down to it, and I'm impressed. I hope they keep him. I don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think they will ever pay another inside linebacker again. But
doesn't seem that way.
But it's also like, sometimes a player really likes the place that he's in, and I think he really likes playing for these coaches. And part of it was him. He basically was like attached to Raheem Morris's hip the entire spring and summer, just trying to get sort of inundated into what they were going to do and the plan for it. And I think he just really took to the coaching very well, and he developed a lot better, and he kind of settled into himself a little bit better, where I think he was almost like playing almost frantically last year, where he'd overcommit on certain things or undercommit on others and maybe overthink things a little bit. And now he's just he just seems to have settled into himself. And I think a lot of that too, Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald have really taken him under their wing in terms of lifting him up when he needs to be lifted up, which has been really cool to see, and something that you don't hear a lot about on the broadcast or anything like that. But you definitely catch those little moments, and it's pretty cool to see.
If Jalen Ramsey gets that sack and Kenny Young gets that pick 6. I'm going to add that Aaron Donald is going to have a fumble recovery for a touchdown.
Wouldn't you love to see that? Like that,
I would love it.
How fun would that be? Like, I wonder what his celebration would be.
You know what? I'm sure it would be amazing. Like everything else he does, he deserves it.
He dunks on the goalpost.
I bet he could.
Yeah,
I bet he could dunk and hang off of the crossbar. I bet you he could do that.
They'd probably throw a flag, and Sean McVay would be like, you know what? I don't even care. That was worth it.
Aaron Donald would pay the fine. No doubt. But so going into score predictions, I'm going to stick with the prediction that I wrote in my article a couple weeks before the season started. I wrote an article predicting like every game that the Rams have this season, and I'm going to stick with the Rams win 35-14 over the Cardinals. I feel like that's still kind of like maybe a somewhat safe, somewhat not prediction. Like Jake said earlier, just throw the Rams somewhere up in the 30s, and that pretty much covers it. I think Arizona is going to struggle, but I think they'll probably find a way to get, a couple touchdowns. They got Kyler Murray, so I can't discredit that. But Jourdan, what is your prediction, your score prediction, I should say, for this Rams-Cardinals game?
Yeah, I think just some of my concerns with the defense. I think it has the ability to be so talented, but again, some of the catch and runs and some of the mistakes in that contain plan concern me still. So I think I'm going to go 34-21 Rams. I think over 30 is their magic number on offense, and under 24 or under is their magic number on defense. So I think that's what I'm sticking to here.
So I'm going a little bit of I guess you can look at blowout territory. I have 41-20. I've watched every single snap the Cardinals have had. I've been impressed and I've been disappointed and I've been just mind boggled. They have a lot of things going for them well. But, on top of that, I do think that secondary is really held together by Budda Baker and Byron Murphy. Jalen Thompson's a solid player. I do like him, but Marco Wilson is not. I don't think he's ready for this game at all. I think it's one of those games where they could pick him apart. Robert Alford, he's been in the league for a while. He's not somebody that really particularly scares me. The offensive line, which we haven't really talked a ton on during the show, but Brian Allen is only allowed a sack going up against guys like, it's incredible, honestly. Akeem Hicks, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Bilal Nichols, Vita Vea. That's a hefty list there. I said right away, I was like, if he holds the fort, this offensive line is pretty much like last year. I think they're a little bit better because I thought last year the offensive line was really good, and just Matthew Stafford just has that pocket presence that doesn't make it, totally collapse on him, so to speak, and has that mobility. So for that reason, I do feel like that somewhat negates their pass rush. They'll have their moments, and they have, players that you have to watch out for, like, rookie Zaven Collins. I really like Marcus Golden coming off the edge for them. But I just think the Rams are just a better team. Arizona's 3-0, not taking anything away from the fact that they've, won games. We could look at the fact that, Jacksonville was winning in that one point, but, they went on the road and they took care of business, 31-19. They beat the Vikings. We could look at it as, they missed a 37-yard field goal and they would have lost. But, hey, it came down to that because, they hung in there and they came back from being down and, they dominated the Titans and they stifled Derrick Henry. But since, though, I really do feel like the Rams are the best team in football. I don't feel like the Cardinals are there yet. So I do think the Rams kind of send them a message early on, and it'll probably help them because, you learn a ton in your losses. This might be a good loss for the Cardinals, and they might be a tougher team. I expect them to be a much tougher team down the road. I have 41-20.
Well, we'll find out. Not too far away. I guess we kind of are, but not really. Already excited for the game, but I think that's going to do it for us. I think we covered pretty much everything that there is to cover right now. And Jourdan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come chat with us and preview this game with us. We're both very excited to have you on, and it means a lot to us.
Thanks, guys. It means a lot that you would think of me and all those nice things you said at the beginning of the podcast. I'm just glowing right now, so I appreciate it. So it really does mean a lot to me, and really appreciate being on, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Well, you are more than welcome. And before we get off, can you let our listeners know where to follow you and where to find your work?
Yeah, so you can find me over at the Athletic Los Angeles Rams section, but do some NFL features as well. And you can find the 11 Personnel podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and it's ad-free in the Athletic app. I'm on Twitter at Jourdan Rodrigue. And I'm either questioning the meaning of life or talking about football. So either way, we'll have some good discussion.
Awesome. And guys, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And we will see you guys with another episode after the Rams-Cardinals game. But until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.
Bet with the 3-decade leader, BetUS. Join now for 125% bonus or 200% bonus with crypto using promo code RAMS125. And bet sports, casino, horses, pop culture, and more at betus.com. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and make sure to use code DTR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.